The Forbidden Experiment. The medical research station Xeris-9 floated silently in deep space. It was a massive structure of metal and light, orbiting a dying star. Inside, thousands of alien doctors, scientists, and researchers studied different species from across the galaxy. Among them was Nixari, a Xiren nurse, known for her curiosity and skill. Xerans were an advanced species, with smooth silver skin and 3 eyes that could see in different spectrums of light. They had mastered medicine, curing diseases that no other species could. But even with all their knowledge, there was one species that still remained a mystery: humans. Nixari had never treated a human before. She had read reports about them. Strong yet fragile, intelligent but unpredictable. Their biology was strange, their emotions even stranger. Xerans believed humans were too chaotic to study properly. The medical station rarely received human patients, but all that was about to change. A critical mission. One evening, Nixari was in the medical bay when a distress signal flashed on the large holographic screen. Emergency. Human life in critical condition. Priority alert. Nixari's 3 fingers tightened around her scanner. A human. Here. She quickly moved toward the docking bay. As she arrived, the airlock doors hissed open, and 2 figures stumbled inside. A man and a woman. The man held the woman tightly, his face full of fear. "Please, help her," the man shouted. Nixari's scanners identified them. The man was Dr. Ethan Carter, a human scientist. The woman, Mia Vasquez, was also a scientist, but she was pregnant. The medical drones quickly lifted Mia onto a floating bed. Nixari scanned her vitals. Her heartbeat was too fast, her breathing shallow. Her body temperature was rising, but there was no infection. Something inside her body was draining her energy. Ethan's face was pale. Her pregnancy was normal until a few days ago. Then, everything changed. The baby started growing too fast. "She's getting weaker by the hour. Please, you have to help her." Nixari hesitated. Xerans had never assisted in human reproduction before. Their medical system didn't even have proper protocols for it. But when she looked at Mia's weak form, something inside her made a decision. "I will do everything I can," she said. A strange discovery. Nixari guided the floating bed into the examination chamber. The room was bright with soft blue light. The advanced scanners hummed as they surrounded Mia. A large holographic screen lit up, showing the fetus inside her womb. Nixari's eyes widened. The human fetus was changing. It was growing faster than normal, but that wasn't the strange part. The scanner detected something new. A mutation in the baby's DNA. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. Nixari zoomed in on the readings. The fetus's bone structure was denser than a normal human's. Its neural activity was off the charts. It was producing tiny bursts of electromagnetic energy, something no human fetus should be able to do. "This is impossible," she whispered. Ethan stepped closer, his voice desperate. "What is it? What's happening to my child?" Nixari didn't answer. She had never seen anything like this before. The fetus was adapting to space, as if it wasn't meant to be born on a planet at all. A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. "Nixari, stop your analysis immediately." She turned to see Dr. Voltar, her superior, standing at the doorway. His long robe shimmered with the golden insignia of the Galactic Medical Council. "This research station is not authorized to interfere with human reproduction," Voltar continued. "The risks are too high. Humans are unpredictable. Their biology is unstable. You will terminate this case immediately." Nixari felt a cold sensation run through her body. Terminate. She looked at Mia, unconscious and weak. She looked at Ethan, who held his wife's hand with shaking fingers. Then she looked at the screen, at the unborn life that was growing faster, stronger, different. Something inside Nixari rebelled. The forbidden choice. "Doctor," Nixari said carefully, I understand the risks. But this human is already here. She needs help. If we don't intervene, she and the baby will die." Voltar's 3 eyes narrowed. "It is not our concern." Ethan clenched his fists. "So you'll just let them die? What kind of doctors are you?" Voltar turned away. "The council has already decided. This experiment ends now." Nixeri felt her heart pounding. She was trained to follow orders. But now, she faced a choice: obey the council or defy them to save a life. She looked at Ethan, at Mia, at the unborn child whose DNA was rewriting itself into something never seen before. The choice was clear. Without another word, she turned off the official scanners and activated a private, hidden medical system. The records would show that the experiment was canceled. But in reality, she was about to break every rule. The unusual development. The research station, HFY, was built for one purpose: to study and understand life across the galaxy. But now, deep within its medical wing, an experiment was unfolding that defied everything the Galactic Council believed in. Nixeri had made her choice. She had disobeyed direct orders, shut down official scanners, and begun a secret investigation into something that should not exist: a human child evolving beyond its species' limits. But as she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just opened a door that could never be closed. A silent betrayal. Inside the private medical chamber, Mia Vasquez lay unconscious, her breathing slow and weak. Dr. Ethan Carter sat beside her, gripping her hand like a lifeline. His face was pale, his eyes filled with desperation. "Is she going to survive?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nixeri hesitated. "I don't know." It was the truth. This pregnancy was unlike anything she had seen. Human pregnancy was already considered risky by Xuran standards. Primitive, inefficient. But what was happening inside Maya's body was far beyond normal human biology. The fetus was not only growing faster than normal, it was rewriting itself. Nixeri stared at the holographic screen above Mia's bed. The child's DNA was shifting, adapting, changing as if it knew it was no longer on Earth. Its bones were denser, its neural pathways more advanced. And strangest of all, it was emitting electromagnetic pulses, not random ones, patterned, structured, almost as if it was trying to communicate. Nixeri's 3 silver fingers moved swiftly over the medical interface, running an advanced genetic analysis. The data scrolled across the screen. Her 3 eyes widened in disbelief. The baby wasn't just adapting, it was evolving. The warning. A sudden voice interrupted her thoughts. "You are making a mistake, Nixeri." She turned sharply to see Dr. Voltar standing at the entrance of the chamber, his expression unreadable. His long, golden robe shimmered under the sterile medical lights. Behind him, 2 medical drones hovered, their scanners locked onto Mia and Ethan. "You are violating direct orders from the Galactic Council," Voltar continued. "Do you understand what that means?" Ethan stood up, his fists clenched. "She saved Mia's life. You wanted to let them die." Voltar didn't even glance at him. His 3 eyes remained focused on Nixeri. "You still have a chance to stop this. Erase all records, shut this down, and walk away. I will not report you, if you comply now." For a brief moment, Nixeri hesitated. She had been raised to believe in the Council, in their rules, in their knowledge. She had built her entire career on logic. And yet, in this moment, something deeper pushed her forward, something she didn't fully understand. She turned back to the screen, looking at the human fetus that was becoming something new. She made her choice. "No." Voltar sighed, as if disappointed. Then he stepped back and gestured to the drones. "Lock down the chamber. Quarantine the humans. Nurse Nixeri is relieved of duty." The drones moved instantly. Ethan lunged forward, but a pulse of energy from the drones shocked him back. He hit the floor with a cry of pain. Nixeri grabbed a medical scanner and did something reckless. She overloaded the system. A pulse of blue energy surged through the room, shutting down all medical drones in an instant. The machines collapsed, their circuits fried. Voltar's three eyes widened in shock. "Nixari, what have you done?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed Ethan, helped him to his feet, and pressed a hidden panel on the medical bay's sidewall. The door hissed open, revealing a dark, hidden corridor. "We have to go. Now," she commanded. Ethan, still dazed, grabbed Maya's floating medical bed and followed. Behind them, Voltar shouted something, but Nixari wasn't listening anymore. She had just betrayed the council. There was no turning back now. A dangerous refuge. The corridor led them to an abandoned research wing, one that hadn't been used in years. Dust floated in the dim light. The security system here had long been deactivated, forgotten. Ethan gently set Mia's bed down, breathing heavily. "Where are we?" "An old genetics lab," Nixari replied, sealing the doors behind them. "No one comes here anymore. We're safe for now." She turned to Mia, scanning her vitals. They were getting worse. Then, suddenly, a noise, a soft hum. Nixari looked up, and her three eyes widened. The holographic monitor above Mia's bed was flickering again, just like before. But this time, the signals coming from the fetus were stronger, and clearer. "It's trying to communicate," she whispered. Ethan froze. "What?" Nixari's hands moved quickly, adjusting the scanner, amplifying the frequency. The pulsing waves from the fetus turned into something new, something structured. Then, the screen translated the patterns into Xiran standard language. One single message appeared. "I see you." Nixari's breath caught in her throat. Ethan took a step back. Is that the baby?" The screen flickered again. More words appeared. "I am not human. I am not alien. I am something in Eva." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, Mia gasped sharply, her eyes snapping open. Her voice was weak, but her words sent chills through Nixari's body. "It's awake." A race against time. The abandoned genetics lab was cold and silent. The only light came from the dim glow of the medical monitors, casting eerie blue shadows across the room. Nixari, Ethan, and Mia were fugitives now. They had escaped the medical bay. But the Galactic Council would not let this go unpunished. No one defied them and walked away free. Maya was still weak, barely conscious, but something far more terrifying was happening. The unborn child inside her was no longer just growing. It was changing reality around it. And now, the entire station was beginning to react. The growing anomaly. Nixari moved swiftly, her three silver fingers gliding over the medical console. She adjusted the scanners, trying to understand the energy pulses coming from Mia's womb. The child's readings were beyond impossible. The baby's brain waves were stronger than most adult humans. Its heartbeat was synchronizing with the station's energy grid. And most terrifying of all, it was sending out pulses of unknown energy. Ethan sat beside Mia, gripping her hand. "Mia, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. She looked exhausted, but something about her gaze was different. She turned her head slowly toward Nixari. "The baby is awake," she whispered. Nixari froze. "What do you mean awake?" Mia's breathing was shaky. "I can feel it. It's aware. It knows what's happening. It knows we're in danger." Before Nixari could respond, the station's emergency alarms blared to life. The red warning lights flashed. Then, the robotic voice of the Galactic Council's AI echoed through the abandoned lab. "ALEART. Biological ANOMMALOI DETCTED. All NONOTHORIZED life forms will be terminated." Ethan's eyes widened. "They found us." Nixari's three hearts pounded in unison. No, they detected the baby. The Council's response. Far above them, in the heart of the station, Dr. Voltar stood before the holographic display of the security grid. His expression was unreadable, but his body was tense. The council's holographic representatives loomed before him, tall, shadowy figures with glowing eyes. "The anomaly is growing," one of them said. "It must be contained immediately." Voltar hesitated. The human mother will not survive a forced extraction. And the Exiran nurse, Nixeri, has already disobeyed orders. A second council member spoke. "Then you know what must be done." Voltar's jaw tightened. He had spent his life devoted to medicine, to preserving life. But this was no ordinary situation. He turned to his security commander. "Deploy the purge units. Seal off the lower levels. Terminate everyone involved." The commander nodded. Within seconds, the war drones were activated. The escape begins. Back in the abandoned lab, Nixeri's fingers flew across the controls, trying to override the station's security systems. The door slammed shut, locking them inside. "They're trying to trap us," Ethan said, his voice full of panic. "What do we do?" Mia groaned softly, clutching her stomach. "It's happening again." The lights flickered. Nixeri looked at the scanner. The energy pulses from the baby were intensifying. "It's connected to the station's power grid," she realized. "The baby isn't just growing. It's changing the entire station's energy flow." And then, boom! The walls shook as a massive explosion tore through the level above them. The emergency lights flickered, then went dark. The station was losing power. Something unseen. Ethan jumped to his feet. Was that an attack? Nixeri's voice was grim. "No. That was the station reacting to the baby's energy. It's interfering with the systems." Mia's breathing became rapid. Nixeri turned back to her. The scanner was going wild. The fetus's vital signs were no longer human. And then something impossible happened. The air hummed. A strange, shimmering distortion floated around Mia's body. It looked like heat waves, bending space itself. Ethan gasped. "What the hell is that?" Nixeri's hands trembled. "I don't know." And then, Mia's voice changed. It was still hers, but layered with something else, something ancient. "They're coming." The word sent a chill through Nixeri's body. Ethan grabbed Mia's shoulders. Who's coming?" Mia's eyes glowed faintly. Not the council. Something else. Something. Watching. The council's kill order. At that moment, outside the lab, the war drones arrived. They hovered in silence, scanning the locked door. Their targeting systems locked onto the life forms inside. Then, the lead drone transmitted the final command. "Terramen N8. The security turrets whirred to life, aiming directly at the lab door. And just as they fired, the entire station lost gravity. The unseen hand. Ethan's body lifted off the ground as the artificial gravity failed completely. Nixeri's 3 fingers clutched the console to steady herself. Mia wasn't floating. Instead, she remained on the medical bed, as if something unseen was holding her in place. Then, outside the door, the drones stopped moving. Their targeting systems flickered, their power cores shutting down one by one. And then, without warning, they were ripped apart. No explosion, no sound, just a silent, unseen force tearing them apart like paper. Ethan stared in horror. What just happened? Nixeri slowly turned to look at Mia. The glow in her eyes was gone. The lad was silent. The station's alarms had stopped. Mia gasped and fell unconscious. And above her, the holographic screen flickered. A new message appeared in Tyran standard language. A message from the baby. It said one word. Run. The Great Escape. The research station, Xeris 9, was no longer just a medical facility. It had become a battleground. Inside an abandoned genetics lab, Nixari, Ethan, and Mia were fugitives, hunted by the Galactic Council. The station's security forces had one order: terminate the anomaly. The problem? The anomaly wasn't just Maya's unborn child. It was awake. It had already destroyed the war drones without touching them. It had already shut down station systems without a command. And now it had given them a single warning. Run. The station in chaos. The emergency sirens still blared across Xeris 9, but something was wrong. Security teams across the station reported strange malfunctions. Blast doors refused to open. Security scanners glitched or looped fake footage. Entire power grids flickered on and off as if someone, or something, was tampering with them. Dr. Voltar, standing in the main command center, watched as his station fell into disarray. A security officer turned to him, panicked. "Sir, we have no control over the lower levels. The human anomaly is interfering with all systems." Voltar's three eyes narrowed. He had underestimated this. The child was still in the womb, and it was already controlling an entire research station. That was not human evolution. That was something else. He turned to the communications officer. "Send an urgent distress signal to the Galactic Council. Tell them, we may have an Omega-level event." The officer's skin paled. "Sir, that means planetary threat classification." Voltar's voice was grim. "I am aware. Because if they couldn't stop this anomaly now, it wouldn't just endanger the station. It might change the entire galaxy." The escape plan. In the genetics lab, Nixuri moved fast, her fingers typing rapidly over a control panel. "We need to get off this station now." Ethan, still shaken, helped Mia into a portable medical pod. She was barely conscious, her skin damp with sweat. He looked at Nixari. "How do we get out?" Nixari took a deep breath. "There's an old supply shuttle in the lower hangar. It's offline, but I can override it manually. We just need to get there without being caught." Ethan frowned. "The station is in lockdown. We can't just walk through the halls." "We won't," Nixari replied. "We'll take the maintenance tunnels." Ethan sighed. "Of course. Crawling through vents. Classic human escape plan." Nixari ignored him, already opening a hidden service hatch behind the lab's main terminal. The passage was dark, narrow, and smelled of metal and coolant. Ethan helped Mia into the tunnel first, carefully guiding the medical pod. "You doing okay?" he whispered to her. Mia's eyelids fluttered. "The baby is helping us." Ethan paused. "What do you mean?" Mia exhaled softly. "It's controlling things, clearing our path, protecting us." Ethan swallowed hard. His child was affecting an entire space station, before it was even born. He wasn't sure if he should feel terrified or proud. The hunter arrives. As they crawled through the tunnels, Voltar's elite security force, the Void Hunters, deployed across the lower levels. They weren't ordinary soldiers. They were bioengineered enforcers with cybernetic enhancements, trained to eliminate high-threat anomalies. They moved in absolute silence, scanning every corridor with advanced thermal vision. They didn't see the fugitives yet, but they were getting closer. The living ship. Nixari, Ethan, and Mia finally reached the lower hangar bay. The supply shuttle sat in the shadows, its engines dark. It was an old model, small, slow, unarmed. But right now, it was their only chance. Nixuri quickly hacked into the ship's manual override. Ethan checked on Mia, whose eyes flickered open. "We're almost there, love. Just hold on." Suddenly, the hangar lights switched on. A deep mechanical voice boomed overhead. "You are Isuro indeed. Surrender immediately." Ethan spun around. His heart dropped. The Void Hunters stood at every exit, their black armor glinting under the artificial lights. There was no way out. Nixari swore under her breath. "We're too late." Ethan clenched his fists, preparing to fight, even though he knew it was useless. Then, Mia spoke. "No, we're not." Her voice was different, stronger, layered with something else. Nixari turned sharply. Maida's eyes were glowing again. Ethan barely had time to react before the entire hangar shook violently. The shuttle's dead engines roared to life. Ethan stumbled back. What the hell? The ship wasn't just powering up. It was changing. The metal around it shifted, adjusting, reshaping. The controls on the hull flickered as if responding to an unseen intelligence. And then Ethan realized the truth. The baby wasn't just controlling the station. It was controlling the ship. It was turning it into something else. A new message flashed across Nick Sari's hacked control screen. One word. Board. Nick Sari didn't hesitate. Get in. Now. Ethan grabbed Mia, rushing her toward the open ramp. The Void Hunters raised their weapons. They fired. But before the bullets could hit, the ship's hull warped, shifting like liquid metal. The bullets bounced off harmlessly. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. No way. The ship had just shielded them. As soon as they were inside, the ship sealed the ramp on its own. The controls flickered again. The engines roared. And then, without a pilot, without a flight command, the ship launched. The Council's fear. Voltar stood in the control room, watching as the ship disappeared into hyperspace. The Council's holograms remained silent. Finally, one of them spoke. It has begun. Voltar exhaled slowly. We have lost them. Another Council member's voice was ice cold. No, we have lost control. Voltar turned away from the screens, his mind racing. What had they just let escape into the galaxy? And was there still time to stop it? The birth of something new. The stolen ship ripped through hyperspace like a comet, its engines glowing with an unnatural energy. But no one inside the ship was controlling it. It was moving on its own. Or rather, something inside it was controlling it. Nick Sari sat in the co-pilot's chair, her 3 silver fingers gripping the console, though she knew she had no control over the ship. The controls shifted on their own. The star charts changed, and the coordinates. They weren't following any known hyperspace route. This wasn't human technology. It wasn't Terran. It was something new. In the back of the ship, Ethan held onto Mia's hand. She was still unconscious, her body trembling. Her child was coming. And the universe would never be the same. An unknown destination. Nick Sari checked the readings again, trying to understand where they were going. The ship was flying toward a planet that didn't exist on any charts. No records, no known life forms. It was as if the ship, or the baby, had created the coordinates itself. Ethan stood behind her. Where are we going? Nick Sari shook her head. I don't know, but I think your child does. Ethan's stomach twisted. His child was choosing their destination. He turned back to Mia. She was sweating, her face pale. Her breathing was uneven. Mia, can you hear me? He whispered. Her lips parted slightly. Ethan, it's time. His blood turned to ice. The baby is coming. The birth begins. Mia screamed, clutching her stomach. A strange pulse of energy rippled through the ship. The metal walls shimmered, distorting like liquid for a brief moment. The lights flickered. The entire ship felt alive. Ethan's hands trembled. Nick Sari, do something. Nick Sari grabbed her medical scanner, but the readings made no sense. The baby's vitals were off the charts. Its neural activity was increasing at an impossible rate, and its DNA was still changing. It wasn't just human anymore. It was becoming something else. The unknown planet. Suddenly, the ship stopped. Not slowed, not decelerated. Just stopped. As if hyperspace itself had obeyed a command. The planet below them was massive and strange, with swirling blue oceans and glowing green forests. It radiated energy unlike any world they had ever seen. But before Nick Sari could scan it, a new problem hit them. The ship was falling. Crash landing. The engines fired automatically, but it was clear. The ship wasn't going to land smoothly. Nick Sari grabbed the emergency controls. Brace for impact. The ship plunged into the planet's atmosphere. fire streaking around its hull. The air thickened, gravity pulling them down. Ethan shielded Mia's body as the ship slammed into the ground, metal screeching, energy fields crackling. For a moment, everything went black. Something watches. Ethan groaned, his head throbbing. Smoke filled the cockpit. The ship's alarms flickered weakly. He turned to Mia. She was alive, but barely. Her body glowed faintly, energy pulsing from her skin. And then, something moved outside. Nixeri sat up, dazed, looking through the shattered viewport. Something was waiting for them. Tall figures, humanoid yet not quite, stood in the distance. Their eyes glowed with the same energy Mia's child was emitting. Nixeri's throat tightened. They were not alone. And somehow, she knew, they had been expecting this child. The final push. Inside the ship, Maya screamed again. A pulse of golden energy exploded from her body, shaking the entire ship. Ethan held her hand. "You're almost there, love. Hold on." Mia gasped, her eyes wild. "Ethan, I can feel it. The baby. It's not just being born. It's becoming something else." Her skin glowed brighter. Her body lifted slightly off the bed, as if gravity was no longer holding her. The figures outside the ship stepped closer. They knew what was happening. Nixeri's voice trembled. "Ethan, I don't think this is a normal birth." "Then what the hell is it?" Ethan shouted. Nixeri turned back to the scanner. Her hands shook. "It's an evolution. The arrival of the new." Mia gave one final scream. A shockwave of pure energy erupted from her body. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as a new cry echoed through the ship. But it wasn't just a human baby's cry. It was a sound that resonated through reality itself, a ripple of something new entering existence. Ethan's vision blurred. He saw flashes of light, glimpses of star systems, ancient civilizations, distant galaxies. And then, silence. He looked down. The baby was here. But it wasn't what he expected. The infant's eyes were not human. They were deep, glowing silver, filled with intelligence far beyond a newborn's. Its tiny fingers curled, not just 5 like a human's, but slightly elongated, almost, adjusting. It looked at Ethan. And then, it spoke. Not in words, not with a voice, but with pure thought. It projected a single sentence into Ethan's mind. A sentence that changed everything. "I am the first, but not the last." The Council's decision. The air on the unknown planet was thick with an energy that should not exist. It wasn't just breathable. It was alive. Every molecule hummed with a strange resonance, as if the planet itself was observing them. Inside the wrecked ship, Ethan Carter, Mia Vasquez, and Nixeri stood frozen, staring at the newborn in Ethan's arms. The child, their child, had just spoken, not in words, not in cries, but directly into their minds. "I am the first, but not the last." And outside the ship, standing in perfect stillness, the watchers waited. The unseen observers. Nixeri was the first to recover. She scanned the figures through the cracked viewport. They were tall, almost humanoid, but their skin shifted colors, adapting instantly to their surroundings. Their eyes glowed silver, the same unnatural shade as the baby's. They didn't attack. They didn't speak. They were simply waiting. Ethan held his child closer. The baby's tiny fingers flexed, its gaze locked onto the watchers. It wasn't afraid. It recognized them. Mia, still weak, reached for Ethan's arm. "They're here for the baby." Ethan's stomach turned. What do they want? Mia's breath trembled. Not to harm it. They're welcoming it. Welcoming. Ethan's grip on the child tightened. No, he wouldn't let them take his baby. Then, a voice filled their minds. "We have waited long for this day." The watchers had spoken, but not with their mouths. They spoke directly into their thoughts. The Council's plan. Far above, in the depths of space, A fleet was coming. The Galactic Council's warships had received the distress call from Xeris 9. Their orders were simple: recover or destroy the anomaly. Eliminate all witnesses. Inside the lead warship, Dr. Voltar stood before the Council's holograms. Their glowing eyes bore down on him. The child has survived. Voltar nodded grimly. And it has reached the unknown planet. A long silence. Then one of the figures spoke. This is a threat to galactic order. You understand that? Voltar hesitated. The child was powerful, too powerful. But was it truly a threat? Perhaps the child could be studied, he offered, under strict containment. No, the Council's voice was final. It must be eradicated. The order had been given. Voltar turned to his commander. Prepare the orbital cannons. If we cannot extract the child, we will glass the planet. The choice. Back on the planet, Ethan stepped forward, shielding the baby from the Watchers. You said you've been waiting, he said. Waiting for what? The tallest Watcher inclined its head. For the next step. Nixeri felt her heart pound. Next step of what? Of life, the Watcher replied. Your child is the bridge. The first of a new kind. Neither human nor Xaren. Something beyond both. Ethan's grip on the child tightened. You're saying my baby isn't human. The Watcher shook its head. Your child is more than human, and more than you realize. The baby lifted its tiny hand. And in that moment, Ethan saw flashes of future civilizations, planets change, reshaped, adapted for life, star systems teeming with species that had never been meant to survive, but now could. And at the center of it all, his child, the first of something new. Ethan gasped, stumbling backward. The vision faded. This wasn't just evolution. This was the beginning of an entirely new race. And then, a shadow moved across the sky. Nixeri turned, her breath catching. The Council's warships had arrived. The sky burns. The warships loomed above, their cannons glowing with charged plasma. The Council had not come to negotiate. They had come to erase. Voltar stood on the bridge, watching the planet below. His hands were clenched into fists. Final warning. Surrender the anomaly, or be destroyed. On the surface, Ethan's rage boiled. They're going to kill us. Nixeri turned to the Watchers. You knew this would happen. The Watchers simply nodded. Yes, that is why we are here. Their eyes glowed brighter. And then, they raised their hands. A pulse of pure energy erupted from them, shooting into the sky. The warships trembled as their systems flickered. Voltar's eyes widened. They're disrupting our weapons. But it wasn't just that. The Watchers weren't fighting back. They were changing the battlefield itself. The planet's atmosphere shifted, bending like liquid, reshaping space around it. Gravity twisted, light warped. The warships struggled to move. And at the center of it all, the baby opened its eyes again. Its silver gaze pierced through dimensions. Ethan felt a voice in his mind, clearer than ever before. His child's voice. No more destruction. Then, the impossible happened. The warships vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed. They were simply gone, as if they had never existed. The final stand. The warships were gone, not destroyed, not disabled. Simply erased. Ethan Carter stood on the alien soil, gripping his newborn child, his breath shallow with disbelief. One moment, the sky had been burning with the glow of the Galactic Council's fleet. The next, space itself had shifted, swallowing them into nothingness. It had not been an explosion. It had been a decision. And it had come from his child. The baby's silver eyes blinked up at him, utterly calm. Its tiny fingers curled, the tips glowing faintly with that same impossible energy. Mia, still weak but awake now, whispered, "It saved us. But how? And more importantly, where had the fleet gone?" A fractured reality. Nixeri's fingers trembled as she checked the scanner. Nothing made sense. The warship's energy signatures were gone. No debris. No radiation spikes. As if they had never existed at all. "This isn't just power," she whispered. "This is something beyond physics, beyond what should be possible." She turned to the Watchers, the strange beings who had been waiting for them since they arrived on the planet. "Did you do this?" she asked. The tallest Watcher shook its head. "No, the child did." Ethan tightened his grip on his baby. "Where did they go?" The Watcher's glowing eyes did not blink. "Nowhere." The word sent a chill through Ethan's spine. "Nowhere?" he echoed. "What the hell does that mean?" The Watcher tilted its head slightly, as if considering how to explain something beyond human comprehension. "The child did not destroy them. It removed them from your reality." Silence. Mia clutched Ethan's arm. "It moved them to another dimension." "Not a dimension," the Watcher corrected. "A state of existence beyond time and space. To a place where their actions no longer affect this world." Nixari's breath caught. It edited them out of the universe. The Council's desperation. But far away, outside of normal space, the Galactic Council's fleet still existed. Dr. Voltar sat frozen in his chair, his 3 hearts pounding. Around him, his officers stared out the viewport, at a void of absolute nothingness. No stars, no planets, no time. Only endless black. They had not been killed. They had been unwritten. Voltar turned to his crew. "Status report." His officers scrambled, but the instruments showed nothing. No coordinates, no gravity, no connection to the rest of the galaxy. "We are nowhere," one of them said in horror. Voltar gritted his teeth. "Then we find a way back." He had always followed the Council's orders, but in this moment, fear crept into his mind. This was no longer about a rogue medical case, no longer about an evolutionary anomaly. This was about something far greater, something beyond his understanding, something that could erase entire civilizations with a thought. And it was only a newborn. What would it become when it grew? Voltar clenched his fists. No, this was not over. Somehow he would return. The awakening. Back on the planet, Mia cradled her child, running a trembling hand across its tiny face. The baby had done all this without effort, without thought. And now it simply rested, as if unaware of the monumental shift it had caused. Ethan turned to the Watchers. "What happens now?" The tallest Watcher stepped forward. "Now, it learns." Nixari narrowed her eyes. "Learns what?" The Watcher looked at the child. "What it is. What it will become." Ethan shook his head. "It's just a baby." The Watcher's silver eyes locked onto his. "Not anymore." Mia exhaled slowly. "Will it ever be human?" The Watcher paused. "It will be. More." A deep stillness filled the air. Ethan wasn't sure if that was comforting or terrifying. A new beginning. For the first time in its long history, the galaxy felt something shift. The Council was gone. Their control had been shattered. The future, once carefully shaped by their laws and restrictions, was now open-ended. The Watchers stepped aside, revealing a path leading into the glowing forests of the alien planet. One of them spoke. "This world is beyond the reach of the old galaxy. Here, the child can grow. Here, you will be safe." Mia nodded, exhausted but relieved. She looked at Ethan. "We stay." Ethan exhaled, his body still tense. "And if the Council finds a way back?" The Watcher's lips curled slightly, almost like a smile. "Then your child will be ready." A deep hum filled the air, like the whisper of a universe adjusting to something new. Ethan looked down at his child. The baby's silver eyes gazed back at him. And then, it smiled.